Welcome to the Graduate Job Podcast, your home for weekly information and inspiration to help you get the graduate job of your dreams.
Hello and welcome to the Graduate Job Podcast with your host, James Curran. The Graduate Job Podcast is your home for all things related to helping you on your journey to find that amazing job. Each episode I bring together the best minds in the industry, speaking to leading authors, graduate recruiters and career coaches who bring decades of experience into a bite-sized weekly 30-minute-ish show. Put simply, this is a show I wish I had when I graduated. And welcome to the 88th episode of the Graduate Job Podcast, coming to you all the way from the lovely Philippine island of Coron. And today I have a very special guest for you on a topic which can strike fear into the hearts of many a listener. Yes, today we revisit the topic of how to pass the online psychometric, verbal, numerical, personality, behavioural and situational judgment tests that you will face when you apply for a graduate job. I'm joined by testing expert Arbel Yellin from the online testing site JobTestPrep, who have helped hundreds of thousands of graduates from around the world to get ready and practice for these vital tests. In today's episode, we explore everything to do with online assessments for graduate jobs and just why it is so important to make sure that you practice some more. We cover the one thing you need to be doing during graduate job online tests, strategies for passing situational judgment tests, and insider secrets for numerical and verbal reasoning tests. We look into exactly how many questions you need to be answering and the percentage you need to be getting correct on each test. We delve into whether you should ever be guessing and the power of making educated guesses. We also touch upon how JobTestPrep's prep packs can set you up for online testing success. Stay tuned to the end of the episode as well, as we have a very special listener offer so you can get 15% off all of the tests on the JobTestPrep site. No matter where you are in your job search, if you're still thinking of who to apply to, or if you're in the middle of the graduate application process for someone at the moment, this is an episode which you aren't going to want to miss. Now, the only link you need to remember from today's show is graduatejobpodcast.com/jobtestprep, as that has all of the links to everything which we discuss and a full transcript which you can download, so make sure you head on over there. Right, let's crack on with the show. A very warm welcome to Arbel Yellin, product manager and former test developer to online testing website JobTestPrep. Arbel, a very warm welcome to the Graduate Job Podcast.
Thank you very much, James. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. And I gave the very briefest of introductions there, so maybe do you want to introduce yourself properly to the listeners with a little bit about JobTestPrep and what it is that you do for them?
Okay, I'll be happy to introduce. Now, JobTestPrep, the company where I work, is an international company. We were founded in 1992. We have a few offices around the world and dozens of employees. We have 10 sites, but the two major ones are JobTestPrep UK and JobTestPrep.com, and they are for job-related assessment tests. What we do is we offer online preparation for assessments that people encounter on their hiring process, whether it's to a law firm or to the public service. And it can be aptitude test, psychometric test, personality and behavior test too. And now these prep packs, which we like to call them, preparation packages, help, thousands of candidates every month. And we try to help the customers get high scores on their exam and move on to the next step, which is usually interviews, and hopefully get the job. We prepare, like I said, candidates in both the private sector and the public sector, and we are constantly trying to improve our practice test to give our customers the most accurate preparation. Our company has many departments: customer success, test development, technology, marketing, content writing, and product management, which is where I am. On my day-to-day work, I do a lot of research on our current products and our future products. I try to keep a close eye on the market and also on our customers, because they usually know the best. I work with analytic tools, SEO tools, if you know, and I approve and edit site content. Like you said in the introduction, I worked as a 2 years as a test developer, writing questions and explanations. So I also know the product very well from within.
Oh, excellent. And as you mentioned, it's such a crucial stage of the application process, the psychometric testing stage. And, you could be the perfect candidate, the best interviewer in the world, but, if you fail the online testing stage, it doesn't matter how good you are, you're never going to get there. And, from speaking to some of the recruiters that I've had on the show, and they say just how many people fail at this stage, they're getting rid of, up to 80% of candidates are falling at this hurdle. It's such a absolutely crucial thing that people just need to practice and practice to get good at.
Exactly. I mean, this is the purpose of this stage, to screen out candidates, because big companies, public like the army or the big institutes, they have a very large pool of candidates, and they want to filter so they will get the best ones.
I remember speaking to one of the recruiters, and they said, they get 30,000 applications for 40 places, and it's just not possible to, interview everybody or, to sift through that many CVs in detail. So using online testing is just a way where you can very cheaply and very easily just, whittle down the people that don't meet the grade.
Yeah, and it's not that these tests are proven, like it's not, these candidates that are filtered, there could be a lot of candidates that are really good for the job. These tests are good, but there are exceptions,
Yep, it's just a necessary evil that listeners, no matter what company you're applying to, at some stage you're going to have to do some form of verbal, numerical, psychometric, diagrammatical, or whatever it might be. They're going to make you do some of these tests. So it is something that you really do need to make sure you are on top of your game. So, Albert, maybe starting at the beginning, how do you go about creating the tests and making sure that they, are really close match to the real ones that people will face?
So, well, we start with the market analysis to figure out which tests are commonly used within certain companies, fields, and even states, if it's the US. And once we know, search volumes, people search for them, we start with the research. We use what's called gray literature, which is technical reports, business documents, newsletters. We have also online sources like blogs or message boards, forums, also commercial data, and of course, above all, our dedicated customer base that helps us fine-tune to what exactly is in the test. After that, I like to introduce our gifted product development team, that they create new questions, answers, explanations, and study guides every day. And every question on the preparation pack we send out, and at the end, every question go through a very important review process, so we know it's good. At the end, our goal is to give the customer the best possible simulation for the test, of course.
Yeah, and how confident are you that the tests are as a really close match to the ones that people will face?
We are very confident. I mean, you should check it product by product, but after we send out the product and the customer prepares with us, we usually know after he takes the test if it's a match or not a match. Most of our products are really, really close to the actual test. It can sometimes be different, like format or how you take the test, if it's on paper or where the question appears on the screen, but it's very close to the real test.
Yep. And I was on the website today going through some of the practice prep packs that we'll touch upon later in the interview, and yeah, it's certainly been a good few years since I've done any online maths and numeric and verbal tests, and yeah, I was certainly very.
How did you do?
I did sort of all right in the numerical one, but the verbal one was, how closely does this statement match, match this statement here, and I was quite rusty on those ones. So needed a bit more practice. But as you said, it was good. Then where I didn't do as well, you can see where it tells you, it goes through the explanation of what exactly it is that I did wrong. So it's good that you're not just guessing about how you didn't answer it correctly.
Yeah, the explanations are very, very important because that's the way the customers learn and perfect their study. It's not just seeing if you got it right or wrong. It's every question, seeing the explanation and seeing how you can improve.
Yep. And how have tests changed much over the last few years? The types of questions that have been asked by the companies, or has it stayed pretty consistent?
I think it's quite consistent, but maybe there's a bit of a tendency now to test not only your cognitive skills, but your behavioral and personality attributes. You have very like Hogan, Caliper, Predictive Index. You have these kinds of tests. It's very hard to prepare for them.
Yep.
You don't know how to prepare for them, but we offer also preparation for them with study guides that really explain what you are about to do and what is expected of you.
Yeah.
The major ones are numerical, verbal, mechanical also for many positions. You have, like I said, the personality, and you have the SJT, which is very interesting, the situational judgment tests, which are very, very popular.
Yep. And you mentioned Hogan there as one of the companies. Do the tests vary much between the common test companies like Hogan, Connexa, Criteria?
Yeah, the tests can be very different from one another. I mean, like I said, for example, if you take the verbal abilities, they can come in very, very different formats, which changes the whole way you go through it. You can see a passage in like reading comprehension. You can see grammar or punctuation questions. Also, the numerical skills can come with graphs or tables. The answers can be very different. For example, the Talent Q test, you are given 20 answers to choose from. It changes the whole way you work with. Now, a very frequent category, by the way, is the cognitive ability tests, like Seacat, criteria, PI cognitive assessment, GIA, McWaig, mental agility test. These kind of tests, like they cover many subjects under one roof. They are very short, and the time constraints are very challenging. You have to answer 50 questions in 15 minutes. Every question is different. The difficulty gets only bigger and harder. And by the way, you are not expected to finish the test on time. And these kind of tests are very popular in the last few years, specifically the Seacat, which is very, very popular.
So 50 questions in 15 minutes.
Yeah, wow. 15 minutes.
How many would you be expected to answer, and how many would you be expected to get correct in a test like that?
I think above 30 questions answered correctly is a very good score. By the way, you get the score immediately after you finish the test, and you are told on what percentile you're on. 27 will get you past almost every position, but not always get you the job, because if other people scored higher than you, it will be hard. But I saw several customers who said they finished the test on time. I'm not sure if I believe them, but if you get to the 40 plus questions and you got most questions right, it's good. It's very good.
Well, definitely. Well, that's I've not managed to do that one myself, so I'm quite glad actually that I didn't have to face that one.
By the way, JobTestPrep is not in like thousands of customers. So for my position, I did a home assignment, which I think was much, much harder than every test I see in our products. Like it took me 5 hours to complete this home assignment, and it was very, very hard. So not always it is best to do something for a small company.
Yep. No, that's true. Oh, okay. So you mentioned situational judgment tests there. Could you maybe just give a bit of background of what they are and what people might face when they have to do one of those tests?
Yeah, sure. Situational judgment test, or in short, SJTs, are like it sounded. You are tested on how you behave and how you react to certain scenarios. For example, you are told that if it's like for the public sector, it's a good question. You are told that one of your friends are cheated on the test, and you want to see, and you are asked to what with the following answers will you do mostly, or and what will you do least. So you need to grade, and for every answer you choose, you get on the back end of the test, you get points for specific characteristics. So SJTs are tough to prepare for, but by the way, in UK, for example, you have the public health specialist test that was in January, many candidates, and they had SJTs on their test, and it was SJTs that were specifically for the public health sector. For example, the ideas, the qualities that they asked are different from corporate companies. For example, in the public health sector, you are not allowed to do extra hours. You need to solve the problem on time, be creative. While in corporate systems, you are expected to do extra hours.
So with SJTs, then would you recommend that? Because often when I've done them, you sort of get an idea of what they might be looking for in terms of the characteristics. Is it better to then, to be honest, with actually, in a situation, are you because I did one of the practice ones today, and it was sort of how social you are as a person. So, when you're at a party, are you, the life and soul of the party, strongly agree to strongly disagree? Is it better to go with actually what's honest, or do you think it's better just to go with what you think that they might be looking for in that role?
That's a very good question, actually, and it mostly applies for personality tests, by the way, but also SJTs. I think the answer should be in the middle, because you don't want to be brutally honest, but you don't want to give the employer exactly what he's looking for, because most times he will see that and he will know that you are lying on your test. So you need to find, I say, be honest, but still know what is expected of you. By the way, there's also something that is called integrity test. And there you are asked, for example, did you ever steal anything? And people that will write no will probably won't get the job, because everybody steals sometimes in their life, somewhere, sometimes when they were a kid, for example. So you want to be honest, but you still want to follow the expectations of the employer. I'm sorry if the answer is not concrete.
No. I mean, that's it's a really good answer, and yeah, there's always that grey area in between. And if you're doing a proper application to a company, you'll have read you'll have read up on the company. You'll know what the company is looking for from the role. You should know about the role and the type of people that they're looking to recruit from. So you should have that idea in the back of your head. And I think it's a really good answer that you don't want to be to the complete extreme, saying that I am the ideal candidate. You want to be honest, but you want to err towards the side of what it is that they're looking for. And as you mentioned, different companies will have different criteria about what it is, what it is that they want.
Exactly. The things that are expected from a program developer is different from a customer service worker.
Yep.
Very different.
And also within specific industries, I know when I've spoken to recruiters at different law firms, and some law firms pride themselves on being collegiate and friendly places to be, and other law firms pride themselves on being super aggressive, super driven, and accordingly the candidates that they look for will be different according to those different criteria.
Exactly. I really recommend the listeners, when they search for a job, go to the website, read the about. Sometimes it will actually says black and white what is expected of you. Also in the public sector, it happens a lot. You have the list of qualities that is needed for this specific position.
Excellent. So we mentioned SJTs there. So maybe then moving on to some of the more bread and butter tests that people will face. So the verbal and numerical tests. Do you have any hints and tips then on how people can prepare and go about making sure they pass those tests?
Yeah, of course. First, I think it's very important to say that your preparation needs to be right, and even before that, you want to see that it's not enough that just reading the instruction on the day of the test. You want to prepare. Now, when you prepare, try to get as much information on the actual test as you can from JobTestPrep, but also from official website of the test you're about to take, of the company you're about to go to. Even reading in forums helps a lot. For numerical reasoning specifically, by the way, you want to make sure as early as possible whether you're allowed to use a calculator or not. This is very important because it will determine your whole learning process. In both numerical and verbal tests, reading the questions carefully is very crucial. You want to make sure exactly what you're asking about, what you are being asked about. Sometimes the question can be negative. Are you being asked what's correct or what's not correct? Because then you will fall for distractors in the answers. Specifically in numerical tests, I think you should note units and make sure your answer has the correct ones, whether it's miles, kilometers, per hour or meters per second, for example. There's a lot of graph and table questions, and the way to go with it is like we call it graph question graph. You want to look at the graph to understand the general idea it depicts, then go to the question, see what you're being asked, and finally go back to the graph or table and look specifically for the relevant information. By the way, this method can work great with reading comprehension passages in verbal abilities. You want to see what the passage is about, then go to the question, see what you're being asked about, and go to the passage and find it. What's more, I think in verbal and logical reasoning, it's very, very important to never base your answer on your own personal or general knowledge. You want to see, you should always base your answer on what's exactly in the text. Logical reasoning is very important to do so. In critical thinking, stuff like that. And last tip I can give, it's for all kinds of multiple choice tests, is to work with the answers. Sometimes you can eliminate some very quickly, and even if you don't know the exact answer, you know what's not the right answer. And in other times, you can just solve the question using the answer, putting the answer instead of the x in the equation, for example.
Yeah, I love those. Some brilliant tips there, and just going through one of them. So one of the clients I coach was recently at an interview for a consulting company, and they told everybody, leave your bags in the room, and then come through. And then they went through, and they had to do the numerical tests. But a lot of people had left their calculators in their bags, but the company didn't let them go back to get them.
Seriously?
Yeah, so then they had to use the calculators that they were given. So often, these were just really basic ones compared to the ones that they maybe had brought with them. So yeah, make sure, if you are able to use a calculator and you want to take your own calculator, make sure you keep it on you throughout the interview, and you're working with a calculator you're used to, as opposed to some dodgy one that you're given on the day. But yeah, reading the questions is key. It's so easy to. You're under time pressure, and all of these tests you're going to be under time pressure, and the temptation is to skim them very quickly, and it's so easy then just to be caught up by the intentional tricks that the devious question setters put into the questions for the people who aren't paying attention, because there's always two that are, as you said, you can always, maybe if there's 5 different options, you can probably get rid of 2 straight away for being outliers. But then there's always a couple of ones where it's it's going to be either one or the other, and there's always some obvious ones that, well, not obvious, easy ones that you can pick by mistake with those questions.
Exactly. Actually, that correlates to another tip I can give for tests in general, which is about guessing. There's guesses, complete guesses, and you have educated guesses. And educated guesses can get you the right answer 50% of the time.
Yeah. No, that's very true. And just building on that question, then, in terms of guessing, do you think it's better to go for accuracy and to only answer maybe the questions that you're definite about, or to go for the educated guesses and then probably get some wrong? What, from a company's point of view, do they prefer to see, say, 15 questions answered and 14 correct, or 25 answered and maybe 15 correct but a lot more wrong?
Yeah, that actually greatly depends on the test itself. I mean, most tests, you want to guess. You want to answer all the questions because you are not getting negative points for mistakes. I mean, in most tests, a wrong answer will be the same as not answering at all. So okay. You want to guess. So you want to guess everything. But there are a few tests that you're being reduced points for wrong answer. So you'll have to check exactly for this specific test. It's on a case-to-case basis.
Okay.
What I can say for certain, though, is that, like I said before, you don't want to waste too much time on answers. Yep. I mean, a thumb rule is that if you are 40 seconds looking at a question and you still have no idea what to do, yeah. probably need to get that right away.
Yep.
I mean, the time constraint is a very big consideration. The time pressure is very hard, and even one question that you took too much time on it can ruin the entire test.
Yeah, especially if you get into that mental loop of thinking, you just, I don't know this one, and then you're worrying, you move on, but you're still thinking about the previous question that you didn't know. I found in my experience that there were some questions I could do very easily and very quickly, that maybe only, some questions needed one calculation and you could get to the answer. But then there's other ones where you need to do, calculate a percentage increase for 5 different things sold, and then had to then do something with those 5 things. So you were talking maybe 15 calculations to get to the answer. Whereas you could just quickly go through, do all the questions which just took 1 or 2 calculations, answer them correctly, then go back to the ones that you knew were going to take you a few minutes, but were quite easy to do, but just involved, multiple calculations together.
Yeah, but there are some people that will say that this question specifically is much easier for them compared to the other question because that's their strength. With the whole preparation process, it's a question whether you go to fix your weaknesses or you go to improve your strengths. So this is really something that you need to take care to consider when you practice. You want to know, definitely you want to know what's your strength and what's your weaknesses. And if you see that you can't really improve on your vocabulary in a week, maybe let go of it. And when you see a vocabulary question that you don't know the answer to it, just guess.
Yep. I always found percentages quite easy, but ratio is really difficult. So I just always, I definitely worked on improving my strengths as opposed to tackling the weaknesses. I just tend to leave the ratio questions or have a educated guess.
Nice. That could be a good way to go.
But yeah, no, really like that point. That's definitely a good way to think about it. And one of the things that the recurring theme that's been coming through from all of these is practice, and just how key practice is throughout all of these questions. Nobody was born with an expertise in answering verbal, numerical, and psychometric tests. It is just something that you need to practice, and practice really does make perfect. Which leads us, nicely on to, you mentioned earlier about the prep packs, so the preparation packs that you have. So, how do you go about creating these for different companies? Or maybe just to explain to the listeners again, just what exactly they are.
Now, we have specific prep packs for every specific test or company or sometimes position. We have a very, very, very big pool of questions we have from many different categories and that we have written through the years. Sometimes we need to write new questions for specific tests that we didn't know. And these prep packs have like the test battery with all the categories in it and all the tests inside the categories, and each test has the questions and answers. So, for example, the public health specialist, we made a prep pack that has the Watson-Glaser test, the RUNRA test, which is numerical. The Watson-Glaser is critical thinking, and also the SJTs. We put all of them inside one prep pack under the categories, so people will they will find it much easier to practice for this position, because this position actually has 3 tests in it.
And how do you know then which for the prep packs which companies' tests are going to you need to include in each one?
There is a lot of information on the web. Like I said before, official information. Sometimes they give you can find sample questions, you can find study guides or exam invitations, stuff like that. We get a lot of information from our customers. The unsatisfied customers, which can come from now and then, they give us the best information, because they will tell you, this is not what I practice, it was different.
Yep.
That way we change exactly to what he says. The customers really, they know the best, and for every unsatisfied customers, we improve a lot of questions.
Oh, brilliant. And I was going through some of the prep packs that you've got for some of the companies that we've had on the show, such as Royal Mail, Mars, Ernst & Young, just to name a few. And yeah, I was really impressed with just how comprehensive they were. So, for example, the Royal Mail one included 9 different numerical tests in 2 different styles. There was 9 verbal tests. There was 2 verbal and numerical tests. There was 3 logical tests, and then there was 55 personality tests. So you're definitely going to be well practiced for the real thing with those. Yeah,
but you also, I don't want to scare customers, because sometimes even like a few hours of practice can really help you. We are the biggest company that has the biggest amount of tests. But even a few hours of just getting to know what you're going to face can really help. Even if you won't improve your numerical reasoning too much, you still improve your testing anxiety when you come to the test and I know this question, I practiced it. You get familiar with the test, and it's much easier to practice, to go through it.
Yeah, and listeners, make sure you stay tuned, as JobTestPrep have very kindly given our brilliant listeners a 15% discount code for all of their tests, which we will reveal at the end of this show. So Abel, with the prep packs then, what should people do if there isn't a specific prep pack for the company that they're interested in? Which tests or packs should they use?
First, I think the best way to go, especially with JobTestPrep, is to contact us. On many of the pages, we have product managers that written the pages and have their emails there. I actually answer customer emails every day. And you have our customer success team that can answer emails really, really quickly and forward it to the right place. And they really help customers get the right practice. So I really recommend using our customer success team. And I think it's important I think we have practice for almost everything. But if you don't find exactly what you're looking for, I really, really want you to tell me so I can make it for you and for other candidates. Excellent. I really do.
Brilliant. And listeners, make sure you check out the show notes at graduatejobpodcast.com/jobtestprep, as I will link to the email address that you can use to get in touch with the customer success team, and also, of course, links across to JobTestPrep themselves. So make sure you check out the show notes there, where there'll be a full transcript of everything that we've discussed today.
Nice. Very good.
So, Abel, how does it work? Do you buy just access then to the specific packs, or can you buy access to sort of everything that you do and on the site? How does it work?
Now, you can buy a specific prep pack. You can buy a 1-week license for this specific prep pack, and you can also buy a 3-month license, or sometimes even 6 months, for the whole site, because sometimes when people go through hiring processes and the job hunt is very long and they go through several tests, and sometimes it's very good to actually have a license for the whole site. It actually doesn't cost that much more than the specific license. Yep. And also we see a lot of returning customers that actually prepare for the same test again. That happens a lot in the public sector, actually.
Yeah, no. Sorry, jump in. Yeah, I definitely, recommend the extended package. When I was applying for graduate jobs, that's what I did. And the advantages are that you need to start practicing early, because you don't know when you're going to be asked to do the test. And often when you do get asked to do it, you don't have much notice. You might have just 3 days, 5 days, or 7 days until you have to complete it. And if you're starting from, it's a standing start, you've done no practice since your GCSE maths, you're going to be racing against time to get up to speed. So it's good to, start the practice phase as early as you can, to make sure that, it's not going to be daunting when you do get asked to do one. And then also another advantage is there could be a big gap between doing the test initially, and then if you're successful and get through to the assessment centre, the odds are you're going to have to do the test again, just to prove that you weren't cheating on somebody wasn't doing it for you. So, the time lag between doing it initially and then doing it at the assessment centre could easily be 3, 4, 5 months. You know how slow these companies can be to get back to you. So, yeah, and you do want to be practicing in the meantime as well.
Also, sometimes you need to do a cognitive test in the beginning, then prepare for an interview, then prepare for a personality test, which are also stuff that we also, these are stuff that we prepare people for. So you want to get a long time. Yeah, it's good.
Oh, brilliant. And any other advice on how, people can best make use of the site?
So I said, use our customer support team, and I think also use, like we said, a long period for the whole site. What's more, I think it's very important to also be aware that we make mistakes sometimes, and we really want the customer's feedback. For every question, we actually have, for every specific question, we actually have room for feedback. That we can improve the questions. We're not perfect, something that doesn't really involve job test prep specifically, but the whole hiring process you go through, is that you want to ask for as much information as you can from the employer. Because sometimes employers can be very vague about the online assessment. They will just tell you, come this day, do an online assessment, and won't tell you anything else. And if you're going to ask them and say, can I know what exactly am I going to face? Can you send me sample questions? How can I prepare? I think it shows the employer that you're really into the job and you want to be the best you can be. It's really good that you do it, because you'll know what you're going to face and you know how to prepare. I think it's important to ask them.
No, brilliant advice. I love that. And, forewarned is certainly forearmed for these tests. And ultimately, it comes down to practice. And if you know that the tests you're going to be facing are Connexa test or Hogan test or whatever it might be, you're able then to focus your attention on those specific tests. And all it takes is one simple question to the graduate recruitment team, who will be, happy to help. And of course, as you mentioned, it shows that you're interested, which always makes you stand out.
Exactly.
So Arbel, thank you. That's maybe a brilliant point for us to finish the main part of the interview on, before we move on to our weekly quickfire question round. So starting first, what one book do you recommend that listeners should read?
This is, I think this is a hard dilemma between two books or two series of books. Which are Harry Potter, of course, and Ender's Game. You know Ender's Game?
I've not heard of that one.
Yeah, because probably most listeners, or all of them sometimes, read Harry Potter, I'll go with Ender's Game. Ender's Game is, it's one of the most amazing books I ever read. It's a great series too. Actually, there was a movie that came out a few years ago, but don't see the movie; it's bad.
Who's that by? I've not actually come across that one at all.
I think Orson Scott Card.
Oh, okay.
It's a side. Yeah.
Okay, I will have to check that one out. I'm on holiday at the moment, so I've got plenty of reading time, so I will try and hunt down a copy of that. But again, listeners, it will be linked to in the show notes. So next question, what one website do you recommend that listeners should visit?
Now that's easy. JobTestPrep, of course. No, I'm just kidding. I have to go with something that is called buzzerbeater.com. It's a very, very old and not really. It doesn't pass the standards for today's websites. It's a web-based basketball manager game. I'm addicted to it for over 10 years.
Oh, wow.
And it's amazing. Yeah, it's a very tight community, about 20,000 people around the world. It's amazing. I love it.
Okay, and again, that's not one I've come across, but listeners, give that a go, and you might end up playing against Arbel himself on that one. Probably getting beaten by you, won't they? If you've been playing it 10 years, you should be a bit of an expert.
Yeah.
So, final question then. What one tip do you have that listeners can implement today to help them on their job search?
Actually, from my personal experience, the most important thing to do before your job search is to envision your ideal job. Before you even try to go to companies or institutes and apply, try to think, what do you want exactly? Go to the details. How much do you want to get paid? How many hours of work do you want to do every week? Where exactly should the job be stationed? Try to answer as many questions as you can, so you will know exactly what you want, even if you're not entirely sure of a specific position or place. By the way, this works excellent with apartment hunting too. Mm-hmm. I think it's really wise. Even write it down. Try to write down what you want. It will get you focused.
I love that, because so many job hunters don't do that thinking at the beginning, and then end up taking the first thing that comes along when this might not be the right role for them. So if you can completely echo that, if you can do do that thinking at the early stage, it will stand you in good stead for all the way through your career.
I really agree. Yeah.
Abel, thank you so much for coming on the show today. What's the best way that people can get in touch with you and also get in touch with JobTestPrep?
Actually, they can email me for my product manager email. It's ask_arbel@jobtestprep.com. And they can go to the jobtestprep.com or jobtestprep.co.uk and go to the contact us page and just send us an email, try to contact us, and we'll help you as much as we can and as quickly as we can. Yeah, that's the way. By the way, we have also a Facebook page, JobTestPrep. You can find us there and send us messages there.
Excellent. Super. Abel, thank you so much for appearing on the show today.
Thank you very much, James. I mean, it's been a pleasure. I really enjoyed it. And everybody here are excited about the show too. Thank you so much.
Many thanks to Abel for his time and insights. Lots of cracking advice for you to work through in today's episode. I know online tests for graduate jobs are painful. I've been through them myself. But the secret, as we discussed in the episode, is to practice, practice, and practice. The temptation, though, can be to scrimp and to try and just use those free ones which you can find online, or some old books that you can buy online as well. But to be honest, this is definitely a false economy. You need to be investing in yourself so you can maximise your potential, and that is definitely true here. If you were to get a rejection at this stage, after putting in a great application but then failing the online tests, you will be absolutely kicking yourself if you didn't invest the £30 to £50, which would allow you to practice properly. Now, to help with the cost, JobTestPrep have very kindly given you wonderful listeners a special 15% discount code off all of the tests on their site, which is valid through to the 4th of April 2020. All you need to do is simply enter the discount code GJP2020. That's capital letters GJP and then the numbers 2020. And that'll get you 15% off everything. Now, if you appreciate the content which I've been putting out and you'd like to support the show, then click on the links to JobTestPrep over in the show notes at graduatejobpodcast.com/JobTestPrep. As that has affiliate links, and we receive a very small commission if you do buy through the links on the website. Now, it doesn't cost you anything at all, but it does help to cover some of the running costs for the podcast, and it will be much appreciated. So that just about rounds off today's episode. If you do have any questions, comments, or if you'd like some one-on-one coaching to help you with your graduate job applications, interviews, or assessment centres, please drop me a line at hello@graduatejobpodcast.com. I do look forward to hearing from you. Join me next week when I have part 2 of my series on getting a graduate job as an employment specialist with IPS Grow. It's a goodie. All that remains to say is I hope you enjoyed the episode today, but more importantly, I hope you use it and apply it. See you next week.